Hi, Ratika. Welcome to our Research Mavericks podcast. We are really excited to have you here. We would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell them how did you get into research in the first place?
Sure. A bunch of years ago, I graduated from IIT, and I remember being recruited with Cognizant Technologies at the time. I was also a part of their US on-site team where we worked on pharmaceutical analytics. After that, I took a liking towards research, and I worked with some media companies like Star and HBO. I've also worked with Kantar at the agency side, trying to understand how to make things better for clients. And of recent, I'm working with Radix, which is the world's second largest domain registry. I'm leading research and CI for them. So it's a bandwagon for me in terms of both analytics and research across industries, but I feel like my favorite so far has been working with HBO because a lot of media insights, consumer preferences, a lot of work around understanding what audiences like, emotional and sentiment, etc., came by my way whilst working with HBO.
So thank you, Ratika, for giving us that highlight. You named my favorite entertainment mode to consume data. HBO has all my favorite TV shows. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what kind of research were you guys doing to understand the consumer preferences, including myself.
Yeah, sure. I'm not surprised. HBO is kind of like the king of entertainment. At the time, I was working for HBO Premium, which was their offering to bring paid entertainment packages to their consumers. It was a sister concern of the main HBO, which is often into movies. As a part of their research, we would find what would value mean in terms of entertainment for consumers. If you're in a market where you'd spend $100 on a burger in a jiffy, what would it take you to realize value in $100 package for like paid content? So we were realizing and mapping uh, the value worth of entertainment to people. And it was interesting because it was so diverse. For some, value meant only the content and just the content, which was content as the king. For some, value meant community building. So, like Game of Thrones, like a lot of people latched on to HBO Premium because of its exclusive community building. And that's what the value meant for them. There were others where value was driven out of operations or ease of billing and administration. And there were another sect of people where value meant to them to be associated with premium brands like HBO. So we used to do constant researches in terms of realizing how attrition can be curbed by reinstating value in terms of consumer preferences. We also did some content analysis, launch strategies, understanding what logos meant to people. There was versatility in those areas, but I think mainly it was reinstating value for consumers.
That is awesome, Ratika. Thank you for sharing that. Within research, what would you say your expertise is in research?
Oh, that's one of my favorite questions actually. Just picking up from what we last really spoke about, I think area of expertise for researchers can be defined as us being curiosity connoisseurs, right? So what do we do? We basically quench curiosity. There are so many questions that all kinds of brands and businesses keep dwelling and answering for, the who's, the what's, the why's, and we as researchers try and very close to bringing these answers to them in a data backed fashion. So I feel like whenever someone asks me what my area of expertise is, it's being a curiosity connoisseur. And that can be translated into us being inquisitive, us exploring the entire tapestry of consumer behavior, us having a penchant for observation, deciphering desires, preferences, almost quirks. of millions of respondents out there, adding analytical finesse to it, and then, in this process, somewhere guiding businesses into, insights. So it's Curious George and answering to Curious George that I think researchers expertise at.
That is wonderful, and especially to do this on a day-to-day basis and having that curiosity and having to get to the answers with a data backed mindset. That is amazing. Kudos to you. Now, maybe if you don't mind, tell our audience what kind of research projects are you working on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So it's usually a blend of different kind of methods, but objectively, it's all inclined towards consumer understanding. That's my main project line. I'm working on tech research right now, where a not so known conceptual um, fundamental brand strategy is being endeavored to bring into the world. And it's not a very fragmented space, so awareness is a challenge, and so constantly research is required, not only to understand what consumer affinity could be, but also to understand what the awareness and desirability is. So, over the last 1 year plus, I've been working on mechanics to improve brand understanding and consumer awareness. A lot of this is to do with surveys and innovative research to that extent, but it also is beautifully blended with some traditional approaches like consumer conversations. And that's what I feel is a little interesting, because although we are in a very knitted world of having technologies around us, but there's an undying charm which consumer connects brings to the table. And that's what the blend of my sort of recent work has been.
Perfect, perfect. And while doing this customer research, what kind of modes are you using to collect this data?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a 60-40 ratio between online panels and sampling versus, like I said, in read conversations or consumer chatter. There's also a bit of blend of social listening and, tools that are there which provide you something which surveys can't gather, and a bit of purchase or traffic data as well. So you have a mix of opinions, you have a mix of social data, you also have a mix of consumer and concernful consumer conversations, and then you knit it together with like actual analytical data like website or purchase or transaction or registrations and all of that. And in a sense, you gather everything, and you keep asking yourself, what are you doing this for, where is this going, and then you try to address the main question behind it.
Yeah, so you beautifully mentioned key challenges in this space. In fact, my next question was around that. Because when you're integrating data, looking at the website traffic, looking at a customer journey, and integrating data from ERP or CRM, combining it with the survey data, it is not as straightforward, right? And we all know that could be challenging. So maybe the question to ask is, what do you see are challenges in this space today?
Sure. So what I feel is that any industry, especially market research and consumer insights, that's seen leaps and bounds of progress over the last 10, 15 years, comes with its own challenges. Any progress itself comes with its own pitfalls. I feel like we've progressed a lot. There is a lot of things that you couldn't imagine X number of years ago. For example, the sheer amount of data available, the access to it, the versatility behind it. But with big data comes big responsibility. And sometimes when you have a lot of fragmentation around you, when you have a lot of options around you, there is a temptation to loss of vision, right? So I feel like, yeah, I'm going to talk about more technical challenges, but I feel like more wisdomous challenges are um, um, a loss to vision and a sidetrack, which often happens when you're doing a lot more of big data stuff. With the advent of digital technology, what has happened is that market researchers have a significant access to almost like data vaults, right? But then again, protecting data, balancing the privacy of these vaults can pose as a very responsible challenge. Like complying with regulations, GDPR, local country laws, consumer privacy laws are things which we need to be extra proactive about, which possibly wasn't the landscape a while back. Yeah, so that challenge is there. Another thing which we need to be extremely conscious about is how it's very easy to get disconnected in a world full of connect. You know, the space is very hyper and very super connected right now. How do you keep the respondent alive? How do you know the response bias is genuine? How do you know that in a world full of technology where there's always so much of clutter in the consumer mind, that you shove out the cognitive biases? There's survey fatigue, there is questioning around authenticity of data, the attention spans are so low, there are cultural sensitivities. So, all of this can also pose as a complex, overwhelming challenge to researchers now. Um, but I feel like uh, a solve around this is to ensure that with everything so connected around you, you do not have a loss of the human touch, and that's very important. And that's a very nice way to look at the advent of AI in market research, although it gives us vast efficiencies and productivity. I feel like the importance of researchers and the specialists will be far more than before, especially because there is a lot of data around us. So that's futuristic as well as very prospective towards our line of work. Um, so we've spoken about data sovereignty being a challenge, and also reinstating connect being a challenge. There's one more that I like to speak about, is how change itself can be a challenge, and constant change to that extent, right? It's an ever evolving technology that we are amid. Every moment, if you think about it, is a history in the making. So as researchers, now we interact with respondents across channels, be it online, offline, amid groups, networks. There's an increasing demand for real time analytics, and stuff like subconscious reactions, consumer behavior in a very progressive landscape. So if you think about it, these dynamics can itself be very complex. The demand, the evolution, everlasting change. And so I feel like, if you're not constantly updated in today's times, if you're not constantly learning, unlearning to that extent, questioning again and again what you're doing and why are you doing, then you can be heavily immersed and sidetracked. So constant change can also be a challenge.
Fair points. Fair points. I just want to pick on something that you talked about is the cluttered inboxes that customers have, right? How do you differentiate yourself as a researcher to get the responses that you're looking for? And maybe some advice for your fellow researchers out there who are fighting the same fight every day.
True, true. I can imagine. So I feel like creating a unique proposition is not the only way to go. Like most of us feel that a lot of data is good data, or doing things more and many can be the answer. But I feel like a couple of things that have helped us or me professionally in the last few months has been applying the principle of less is more. So, what that means is that you needn't necessarily shout out your objective to reach the right respondents. But if you have a connect or a conversational style in which you approach people, that might hit the nail. It might not be as scalable as you may have wanted it, but I feel like the accuracy and the genuinity is far more sharper than scalable online plenty and manifold solutions that many of us aim for. So it's the classic quality versus quantity. And I feel like if you reach someone with connect, if you reach someone with curated connect to that extent, that works a lot. Conversational style surveys is something which has worked for us in the recent history. And the main reason why there are sharper responses with conversational style is because people still feel that they're connected. That's the same approach with communities. A lot of research is being tilted towards communities now, especially for new kids on the block, new businesses or startups, entrepreneurs, etc. They always want to interact with people who are on ground in the moment. And so communities also give you that foundation of being connected, of being linked. And that's where the response or accuracy of response then comes in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a great answer. Now that we have spoken about the challenges, we've spoken about some advice to the fellow researchers. Uh, Maybe we can wrap up the podcast by asking you, what are you excited about developments in this space today?
Correct. So we spoke about this before, but I'll take it up again. It's AI and automation that everyone speaks about, but slightly different looking perspective on it. Needless to say that we will look forward to AI and advancement in terms of research processes. A lot more analytical finesse that is added to the whole process, utilization of real time research. But also, I feel like it's very pretentious in terms of its ensuing interpretation. There's a lot of specialist motivation, like I said, that will be added in times to come with the advancement of AI. You have so much more that you can rely upon and make sense out of, that it's almost impossible to figure out um, that researchers will be a poignant part of the ecosystem. There is behavioral and neuromarketing techniques, there is immersive consumer reactions, facial coding, you have brainwave data. All of these hubs and spokes, if you imagine in a researcher's wheel, will only help people to realize motivations towards specialists. And I think that's very important to understand within our fraternity, because often there's a myth that with AI and advancement, what will happen to professionals and specialists or research mavericks, if you will. But I feel like now is the time that there will be immense interpretational motivations that come out of these technological advancements, right? So that's one. The trend that I look forward to, in spite and despite of AI, is I feel like the future of research will be more holistic. It will be driven out of the holist theory, which stems from interconnecting different aspects into one overall conclusion. And what I mean by that is that I feel like there'll be more integrity with other branches of, let's say, consumer vision, such as psychology or sociology or neuroscience, where MR and CI will increasingly collaborate with these sciences. And there'll be much more nuanced understanding, is one, but there'll be a lot of hybrid approaches that will offer comprehensive views. That's something which I'm looking forward to, in terms of different branches of sciences coming together, and there'll be a symbiotic genesis of research truly representing strategy then. That's one. Besides this, I feel like there'll be a lot of focus on empathy, whether it is respondent empathy or consumer empathy. Like I said, the clutter shall be evaded by techniques of empathy and conversation. And so I feel like there'll be focus, or future focus on a lot of empathy delivering devices. So those are some of the future trends and patterns that I'm looking forward to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Ratika. We really appreciated it. We enjoyed talking to you and learning from your experience. It was just an awesome time with you.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm looking forward to Research Mavericks adding so much value in our lives. It's always really nice to connect with like minded folks, and I really hope that research has a great future out there.
Definitely. Amen to that.
Thank you.